Hey, it has been snowing and sleeting and freezing rain all day long. The whole city outside is completely dead. Literally dead. Not that anybody cares. I heard a couple cars slipping and sliding as they're going up the road. Not recently. I read every comment. I've said that before in every one of these videos, and I do read every comment. I love reading about what you have to say. I am sometimes incorrect, but other people tell me as far as what's going on in different countries by watching news feeds. Some of it is proposed and some of it's implemented. And by the way, I don't do politics at all, so I can't stand any politician because they're all inept fools and highly unintelligent. They're extremely unskilled people. It doesn't matter whether they're on one side or the other, 99 times out of 100. They don't know how to do anything, they don't know how to build anything, and they pass legislation on stuff that they know nothing about, like, snapping your fingers and, putting 20,000 people out of work, for example. I mean, they're all guilty of that, but this is yet another installment of what's going on. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like a confirmation about what's going on in the UK. I know they're proposing that you can't travel at all unless you've got a certification saying that you've been injected, if you know what I mean. The Brits are also too, I'm not trying to focus on England here, by the way, proposing that you can't eat out at a restaurant unless you have a certification. Show me your papers. Sounds like something from 1940s Europe. Show me your papers. That you have to prove that you've been injected to go out to a restaurant. That would never affect me since I never go out to restaurants, but I know most people love to do that. Not only does that, depress the hell out of people in general that like to do that, it keeps them from communing with others. There's also, too, a very nefarious thing behind this, and I'm only, speculating on this, but every movement or every counter-movement has usually been hatched in a bar or a restaurant. And when you keep people from talking with each other, there's this thing like the Roman fascia, where you tie a bunch of sticks together and they become unbreakable. That's formed in communities when people get together and, they have a brew and they talk and they agree with each other on things that have to do a lot to do with common sense. And when you basically keep everybody out of bars and restaurants, then if you are a nefarious person or entity, then that keeps people from getting together and talking about common sense, because then everybody's just sitting at home watching Netflix, and there are many places on this earth, you tell me which ones, I've heard of many. It's like, you can't go outside and breathe fresh air and walk your dog. And if I were to tell you, all of you, or any of you, like just 2 years or 3 years ago, that this would be going on, you would say, oh, you bald, tattooed monkey. You have been smoking something illegal or, snorting something. It just sounds completely ludicrous. Literally, any of us, including me, if someone said, this is what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And they're going to say we're going to need 15 days to crush the curve. And then it's really going to last for years and years. And they're going to, I'm like, no, there's no way all that. Yeah, you can't go out to eat. And everybody that has a business or a bar or a retail, they're all going to be put out of business. And they're going to be like 6 months past due on the rent. Can't feed their families. And they're getting more and more and more desperate. And you could plug these algorithms of human behavior, which are highly predictable, into any computer, much less a supercomputer. You say, well, they'll give you a breaking point. People will snap. And then what we're going to do is we're going to implement this that gives us greater power and control. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but I don't want to engage in any tinfoil hat lunacy. Things are reaching ahead in many places of the world. Things are really bad in Australia, and I've had several Australians tell me, oh, everything's fine now. And then I've had a lot of Australians tell me, don't listen to those other Australians. It's total lie. Things are still really bad. So I guess it's what province you're in. You tell me. I mean, I'm hearing from both ends of the spectrum in Australia. You know, people are getting evicted. They can't pay the bills. Power costs are rising. I mean, they're rising big time. They're trying to pass these laws saying you can't evict somebody, like in New York, and I can see where nobody wants to get thrown out on the street, but like 95% of property owners that are renting to people, you know, are not big fat cats. It's like, you got to pay the rent because, you know, I have to pay bills too. So you can't get away with that. You know, it will reach a point like pulling a rubber band back. You can only pull it so far and it's going to snap. And I don't care what you think on what I'm about to say, but this is an undeniable fact. Whatever you think, one way or the other, about what's going on in the world about a microscopic little creature, 99.9% of the misery that's going on, literally 99.9% of the global misery that's going on, has nothing to do with a microscopic creature. It has to do with stupid, power-hungry, knuckle-dragging scumbag politicians. And that is undeniable. 99.9% of the misery. Period. I keep hearing and seeing reports. I've even got 3 emails over the past week and a half, including another one from a YouTube channel. His assistant was committed suicide. I heard of 2 kids of relatives that contact me saying, so-and-so, I don't want to give any names or any details at all, committed suicide due to total despair and depression. And I'm not making a comment about this one way or the other. I'm just telling you what my 2 frigging eyes saw. And it's seen it many times. You're going to wreck a generation, create a generation of post-traumatic stress disorder, like little war babies. You know, like kids that have suffered, you know, through World War II. These kids that are these little tiny infants, you know, that are being forced not to breathe. I'm not taking any stance on this. I don't ever tell anybody what to do or think or believe, but I know it's going to, you know, be psychologically imprinted on those kids for a very, very long time, and it's absolutely horrific. If you have, and I wished I had kids, but I mean, if you do have kids, everybody's complaining now. And I know parents have to work. They want their kids to go off to friggin' school so the parents can go to work. Because the parents can't stay home and watch the kids because they can't pay the bills. I get that part. But all these people, and there's an enormous amount of union, and don't even ask me what I think about unions. You do not even want to hear what I think about unions. But there's all these teachers' unions that don't want to go back to work. They want to keep collecting money and sitting, you know, on their butts, and then blaming that they're afraid to go back to school and teach kids. I have about 1% respect for teachers, and that's for about the 1% that are worth a nickel. 99% of teachers are not worth a single hoot in hell. If that pisses you off, I do not apologize. I don't apologize at all. I'm not even going to come close to an apology. I have no respect for 99% of teachers. They're useless. They're overpaid, even though they're not paid that much. They're still overpaid. They're lazy. They're dumb. They're not educators. Most of them are not. Everybody's complaining about this. Other than the work aspect where parents need to go to work, homeschooling kids is a way better. People say, oh, the kids are going to be impacted negatively. I keep hearing this over and over again. It's a total lie. It doesn't have to be that way. Kids are just sitting at home playing video games. Well, they don't have to. You know, force the kids. They're your kids. Force them to read stuff that will elevate their minds. Give them the tools with which to think. Schools were horrible before. Now they're way even worse. Why the hell are you stressing about your little rugrats, you know, going to a petri dish of anti-intellectualism being taught by people that are not qualified to teach anything? They're not even qualified to teach a dog, much less your child. If your kids were to even read 1/10 of the stuff that I've recommended, like the Periphesion of John Scotus Erigena, the works of Plotinus, the works of Plato and Aristotle, that's what mega-rich aristocracy forced their kids to learn, and those kids grew up with an incredible, brilliant mind. You can do that at home. All these materials are free download now. I mean, everybody has a high-speed internet connection. Instead of watching, unclothed adults doing horrible things and watching, nonsense about stupid garbage. I mean, talk about not taking advantages of the tools in front of you. Everybody today has an iPhone and a laptop. Basically, 99% of the world does. Not literally, but for God's sakes, make use of it. Homeschool your kid. Stop complaining about your kid not being able to go to school. I find that incredibly stupid. If I had a kid, they would never go to public school. Never, ever, ever. A kid would be brilliant compared to the horrific rejects that public schools spit out. There's so much polarization going on in the world, especially in the United States. It's going to kickstart a global shift from which neither you nor me, no matter how old or how young you are, we're never going to see, the snapback from that global shift. None of us alive are ever going to see that. It's not going to happen. Only took a couple decades to see the snapback from World War II or World War I, which World War II was just a continuation of World War I. But none of us are going to see the snapback from this. This cannot continue to go on. Like I said, 99.9% of the misery that's going on has nothing to do with a microscopic creature. It has to do with power-hungry, filth-mongering trash, demons that are drooling at the mouth, drooling from the tips of their fangs like the demons that they are, trying to punish the world. Exercise the pathetic little powers that were given to them, trying to hang on and grab as much as they can. I don't care if you agree with that or not, that's a fact. I have absolutely no interest in you agreeing with what I just said, because it's a fact. Here's another fact. The global population, I forget what the spike was, but it was significant last year. We're not talking Spanish flu and what other trying to think of another global catastrophe where the population for a year or two or three, like, whew. Even during the plague, where this is insanity. Once again, I don't tell anybody what to do or think or believe. I don't tell anybody what to do with their life or how to conduct it. Everybody should always do what they think is best for them and their family. I do not tell anybody what to do, okay? So don't jump on my back. I do want to hear from you, and I do read every comment. Believe it or not, I love it when people say, hey, I bet you don't read this comment. It's like, yeah, I did. I just read it. I always read every comment, even if they're really grotesque and insulting, so. By the way, did anybody notice that Washington, D.C. is still a military encampment? Not only is there fencing all around, I've never been to Washington, D.C., never once. The only reason I'd want to go there is to see the Smithsonian. You know what? It's a dirty city that's full of traffic and is filth. It's just a filthy city. The fences are not topped with barbed wire, by the way. They're topped with razor wire. That's the stuff you put around maximum security prisons. My idea is to keep the troops there, weld that fencing into place, and just keep all of those filthmongers in there. That's where they belong. Keep the razor wire. Just keep it like a jail. You keep the most undesirable aspects of humanity in a high-security prison behind razor wire. Totally anti-politics. All of them are filth. 99% of them are filth. Keep them in there behind razor wire. It sounds like a great idea. I hear everybody complaining, well, Washington, D.C. is a military camp and it's covered in fences and razor wire. Fine, keep it that way. It's exactly what we do with lowlifes in prison, and the people that are inside D.C. are the lowest of the low. No different than a thug in prison. The difference, actually, is that a lot of people that are in D.C. have harmed and maimed and ended the lives of more people than 99% of people that are actually in high-security prisons. One of them is in New York, and he's the governor, but that's a matter for another discussion, which I'm not going to discuss. Restrictions and on freedoms, restrictions and freedoms, lack of crushing on humans' freedoms, at least here in the United States anyway, will necessitatively spawn freedom zones of autonomy, kind of like, like the Chaz zone in Washington State. Remember that? The autonomous zone. The continued restrictions on American freedoms, I don't know what it is in your country, I'm not going to attempt to speculate or pontificate on that, will necessitatively spawn these freedom zones, and it's going to divide and cause far greater polarization than we see even now. They're talking about, and Florida, by the way, is doing great. I spend part of my time living in Florida. People go around, for the most part, except for some retail stores, conducting their lives like, nothing's going on. And they're faring way better than virtually any other state in America. And Washington is talking about closing off borders with Florida, which is technically illegal. That's blocking interstate commerce and travel. There's some sort of law that that breaks. I'm waiting to see if any variety of evil politician tries to enact this Florida isolation zone where we block Floridians from entering or leaving, or other people from entering or leaving Florida like it's another country. I can't wait to see that happens, because when and if that occurs, which would be a travesty and a farce and laughable at the same time, I'm going to leave it there. I can't wait to see that happen. I can't wait to see. I'm going to pop some popcorn. Yeah, I'm going to pop some popcorn and I'm going to see what gives. Because everything, including humans and human psychology, is pressure mediation. Everything is fields. As the ancient Chinese saying goes, and by the way, this horrible censorship that's going on in the world, especially in the United States, as the old Chinese saying goes, only three things can be hidden for so long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. I love the fact that people are trying to keep other people from knowing things. You can't talk about that. Tell me if I'm wrong. What do you feel about the fact that an enormous amount of people are being told, don't talk about that, on various places, whatever it be, not any specific thing. Yeah, don't talk about that. Here's Adobe Flash Player, that garbage reminder. God, I hate Adobe. If it wasn't for Adobe Acrobat, which I need and use every day, God, I hate Adobe. Adobe, you really do suck. But please tell me what you think in the comments. I do love to read your comments. And I also, too, love to hear true stories about what's going on in your neck of the woods. I really do actually love to read that. And it is especially apropos that I read it today, tonight, tomorrow, because there is like rain and sleet, freezing rain, sleet. There is like a living frozen hell outside. If I stepped on my front porch, I would slip and crack my skull open. Some of you might actually like that, but oh man, this world is getting ripe like an enormous zit that is a month overdue from being popped. And I'm going to sit back and pop some corn. I don't participate in anything but there's a stress that's building where people can't pay their bills, they can't go to work because their kids can't go to school, and on and on and on and on and on and on. I mean, hell, even my income has been cut in half, and I work 3 jobs. Yes, I technically do work 3 jobs. 4, actually. So I do leather work, I write books and articles, I do product photography and commercial, and I spend an enormous amount of time, more than I ever thought I would, on YouTube stuff. And a lot of that is answering emails and reading comments, and I spend an enormous amount of time. I mean, I was up to 5 a.m. yesterday. I was walking around like a zombie. There's a point that you reach when you're so sleep deprived that instead of feeling miserable, you become euphoric. It's like you're floating. You know you're walking, but it feels like you're floating. You know, you've been there before. I know you have. So you tell me what you think, okay? God, I hate you, Adobe.